Mike Briggs is our cattle market analyst this week. As you've heard in our last few interviews with Mike, the feedlot industry, after a long stretch of drought-related losses, is seeing solid returns. A tight supply has helped increase profit margins, but it's also now heating the market for feeder cattle. Those futures are hanging around record levels. A feed ration for those animals looks to be off to a good start as the country's corn farmers are on pace with their 5-year planting progress average. However, another part of those diets, distillers' grains, are becoming more competitive. Reuters says China imported more dried distillers' grains in April than any month in the past, and most of it came from the U.S. The country brought in more than 600,000 tons of DDGs in April, up 252% from a year ago and 40% higher than March. Here at home, the U.S. is coming off a big demand weekend when beef producers anticipate consumers will buy meat for grilling. They may have paid as much for it as they ever have. The Beef and Veal Consumer Price Index has increased nearly 10% in 2014 alone. It's the largest 3-month increase since 2003. We started our discussion with Mike Wednesday morning by asking for his thoughts on how price and supply affected demand over Memorial Day weekend.
Really haven't heard, but the thing that was in our favor is tremendous weather pretty much throughout the country. They had nice weather in the Northeast, which they haven't had forever. So I'm hoping there's a little pent-up demand there to go out and grill, but because you had the holiday, some of those numbers are slowed down. So really haven't heard what clearance has been, but hoping it's good.
Yeah, describe to me how high feeder cattle prices have been.
From the ground to the moon. It's amazing, and they just keep ratcheting it up. And once again, the incredible feed yard industry that I'm in, we're probably the only industry in the world that takes all the money out of their raw product, but we do.
Margins now are good, yes?
Margins now for cattle that you had in the yard are excellent. Yeah. I would say probably all-time records.
But if you're buying at what the feeder cattle prices are at now, could that threaten profit margins?
I think if you're not careful, if you're really running around out there like a drunken sailor, I think you could give back some of what you've gotten. It's going to depend a lot upon what kind of corn crop we have. If we have a really good corn crop, you know, your cost of gains are going to go down and you're going to be fine, I think, because going into the fall, we're not making any more cattle.
Yeah, April placements were 5% below a year ago. Is that an indication of supply, or is that an indication that people are still holding?
No, I think absolutely it's an indication of supply. The cattle, the feeder cattle just aren't there, and they're going to continue to get tighter. So I think I see you're going to have an increase in slaughter numbers here for the next 60 days. That's going to be an interesting thing. After that, we're going to get really tight cattle, and we may get extraordinarily tight October, November, because that's where these placements that are down on go. So I think you could have a serious problem as you get in the fall, but these next 60 days are a pretty big hurdle to get over, I'm afraid.
You say slaughter numbers are going to be higher because?
Increased supply of cattle. This is the seasonal deal. We have a lot of calves that go June and July, excuse me, and I think those numbers are there, and they talk like we may even have a higher slaughter number than we had last year with bigger cattle. So you could potentially have a rather large supply of beef that's going to be pretty expensive. Now maybe it won't be as expensive as it's been the last 60 days, but it's going to be expensive, you know, compared to history.
Right, and we know that the cattle are getting bigger. You look at the last slaughter report, while production was 4% below, the average cow is 10 pounds heavier on a live weight basis. That's nothing surprising. We've talked about that before in the past.
Great weather, and every year our genetics improve. We've had record performance. And that's what's interesting to me. You see a lot of these guys that write letters saying, well, these cattle are big, people are obviously holding cattle. Nobody's holding cattle. Cattle are going 2 and 3 weeks early. The weather has been so good, and the genetics have gotten so much better. We're able to make these cattle bigger. They're more efficient on their feed, and you've seen what grading done. Grading has gone up considerably, so we're doing really well from that standpoint.
Where do you expect corn prices to go now?
Well, it's all up to Mother Nature. We talked about it last time, I believe. At one point, everybody's going to realize, hey, the corn crop's going to get planted. We're there. We've taken, 40, 50 cents out of this thing. I don't think it just goes straight down, but it could just keep grinding that way if Mother Nature is favorable. Now, so far she's been favorable, but you always have a hot, dry stretch in there. You always have it. It's going to come. And depending on what your managed money does, it could really get wild. That's one of the things why the market has gone down so far so fast. A lot of the managed money has left.
Yeah.
I think it's a little early to run corn down any further than what we have. But, you know, as long as Mother Nature takes care of us, I don't think it has any other direction but down.
How affordable are distillers' grains right now? You know, you look at data from China that April was a huge month for them. They always want to buy. What does that do for price and supply here?
It makes it very difficult for us because we want to buy distillers' grain on a relationship to corn, preferably cheaper. You know, 85–90% the price of corn delivered to feed yard would be magical. And we are not able to get that done, and it's because of China. They're buying so much of it, and until they get their foot off the pedal, I'm afraid we'll have a little problem there getting distillers grain in at a price that we'd like and be able to feed it at a level in the ration we like, because we're feeding it at minimum levels. I think most people are, because relative to corn, it's way too high.
We'll close out talking about prices in the grocery store. We were talking before we went on here about some of the prices we paid over the weekend for beef. What do you think we could see in the grocery store for a price?
I think you're going to continue to see hamburger ratchet up, because that is the #1 product that customers want. They want hamburger. It's easy to cook. People don't know how to cook very well anymore. A roast is hard to cook and it takes time to cook. Hamburger's fast, it's easy, it's multiple, it can do a lot of things, and people like it. And I think, at least at this point, they're willing to pay for it. So that's what we're going to see. I think the retailer's going to keep ratcheting up that hamburger. And you may see your steak prices kind of flatten out a little bit, but I think hamburger's just going to keep going. And in a way it has to, because we don't have the lean meat supplies we need. We're having to grind the end meats on these cattle, which for me I think is fine. So I think that's a good thing. That just gets more product off the market.